Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Turning Insights into Action with Showpad. I'll be your host today. I'm Rohit Pujari, and I lead embedded analytics for QuickSight. Today, we are super thrilled to have Showpad to share their story with us. And the partnership is even more exciting. Showpad, who is known for their enablement operating system that unites marketing and sales teams to deliver revenue driving experiences. You'll hear from our guests, Tony, who's the Chief Product Officer, and Jeroen, who is the Chief Architect and Head of Data at Showpad, about the key strategies and best practices they're employing to deliver data driven experiences in their product for their customers. We'll hear from them about the following items. We'll hear about their challenges with accessing the right data, their approach to question based analytics, and also how that's helping their customers. So, without any further ado, I'd like to invite Tony to kick us off.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's exciting to be here today. Really excited to be talking about how we're basically benefiting our customers and working with AWS to get the most out of QuickSight. So I want to talk to you today a little bit about getting data right, how hard it is and why it's important, and then we'll move on from there. So it wouldn't be about data unless we spoke a little about numbers first. And what we're seeing is companies that use data to make their decisions are 58% more likely to reach their revenue goals. And Showpad being a sales enablement platform, it's all about reaching those revenue goals for our customers. So 58% is significant. It makes a big difference to make sure we are using data and our customers are using data in really smart ways. What we also see is, unfortunately, 79% of companies say they struggle to take actionable insight or actions from that data in real time. So whilst data is really important, we see lots of customers struggling to make really informed decisions with data. Let's talk a little bit about why that might be. So first of all, what we see is our customers struggling with, and many of you may be struggling with similar challenges about the data is unfocused. So there's so much data that it's all about generating more in many organizations. So the ability to generate more and more data is just such an obvious thing to try and do more of as people ask more questions. The people are just drowning now in that data. And you can see here 2/3 of chief marketing officers say that it's not the lack of data that's hurting them. In fact, they're being overwhelmed by so much data. They actually don't know where to start to see the signal in the noise. That data then lacks context. So, for example, the daily reports that many of these people get, and again, another piece of data here from McKinsey, 30 to 40% of those reports and supposed insights that they get are actually adding no value. They're actually not in the context in which somebody would find them useful for their day-to-day choices. So there needs more insight and information around that data. If we look at the final challenge, it's also siloed. So, for example, you've got salespeople over here in one set of tools, marketing here in another set of tools, sales enablement leaders in another set of tools, all with their own data, all trying to work out how to make the best successful moves with their teams to make those revenue outcomes better for their organizations. So again, 47% of sales leaders are struggling. In fact, it's not even about the fact that some of that data is in different places. It's sometimes they're seeing that data showing up in different places saying different things because there's not one single source of truth for their information that they're looking at. So again, they've got this data silo. So the bottom line is that what we have here is the ability, the struggle to access that information to get engaging analytics. We've got a lack of insight, so people like marketing can't understand where the most important content is that they're working on. And then we've got sales enablement who struggle to understand, for example, which sales initiatives and learning capabilities that are really making a difference with those sales teams so they can make sure they double down on those things. So with that, I'm now going to move forward and talk a little bit about the Showpad enablement operating system. It's what we are shipping to support this problem. What we have here is a place where sellers, marketeers, and buyers can also come together with a single source of truth for the content for both a sales piece of content, a marketing piece of content, and also the sales training content for anybody involved in a sales process. And this gives them access to the most effective engaging pieces of materials in their buying cycles. And as part of that, we have the insights and analytics piece, which you'll see in that sort of segment at the top, which is all about how we serve up the best insights for those people to take the next best actions with the right content at the right time in their deals, and also to coach their teams on the best things to do to make those deals close more quickly. So that's our sales enablement operating system that we support from Showpad. I'm now going to hand over to Jeroen, who's going to talk a little bit more in detail about what does that unpack and what have we done with QuickSight in the product to bring this to reality. Jeroen, over to you.
Alrighty, thank you, Tony. And with that, one thing I want to do is dive a bit deeper into our approach and the approach that we took to bring analytics and insights to our customers. Now, we realized that in order to deal with the complex issues surrounding data, we needed to dramatically change the approach of delivering data and insights to our customers. And so we focused specifically on making sure that these insights are easily digestible and actionable versus overloading the end user with a whole bunch of insights and data that they couldn't make sense of. So specifically, we said, okay, let's go from loosely coupled and disparate data on content, training, and conversation engagement to insight-focused, question-based, and comprehensive dashboards. But so what does it mean to have insight-focused, question-based, and comprehensive dashboards? So what we did is essentially we created dashboards that streamline and democratize data across the go-to-market organization. And our human-first approach essentially made sure that our data and insights are now approachable versus overwhelming, which means that for sales, marketers, and for enablement professionals, they now get immediate, precise, and clear answers on specific and real business questions that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And so our insights have become tangible. So instead of having to dive deep into raw data or having to ask a data expert, you now get this out of the box from Showpad. Now, in order to make this possible, we essentially needed two pieces of a puzzle. We needed, on one hand, a technology framework or a set of technologies that allows us to scale, but at the same time stay flexible enough so that we can meet our customer demands. And at the same time, we also needed a new user experience that's focused on the consumer of that data. It's focused on making sure that we can make a bit of a revolution in the space and really highlight the issues and make them more actionable. So with that, we're going to focus a bit on the technology first, and specifically on how we have partnered together with Amazon on bringing our data from Showpad and the technology of QuickSight together in a single product.
That's super interesting, Jeroen. Curious about your journey and how did you go about choosing a technology to deliver your user experience? I'm just curious about that.
Yes. And obviously, like before you make decisions, right, the first thing that happens is you're confronted with challenges and you have to address those challenges. So Showpad, taking a step back, a couple of years ago, we had 4 key challenges when it came down to data. So on one hand, we saw difficulties for our engineers and developers to access data to make relevant dashboards for customers. We saw it was very complex for that data to be accessed, and we lacked a centralized space for those insights to be generated from. Secondly, once developers and engineers had access to data, there was little to no data quality that allowed us to serve those insights to customers. So we lacked things like data champions and consistency in our data to give guarantees to our customers and ensure that the data delivered was the right data. On top of that, we saw a lot of different tools and frameworks that we were using internally to deliver that data. So we had fragmented data stores, we had fragmented data models, and that kind of leaked into our user experience, where you saw different approaches to reporting, and ultimately a lack of consistency for the end user. In order to solve that, we basically went to Amazon and started to work with QuickSight to address some of these challenges. Now, high level, what QuickSight has done for us is, first of all, it allowed us to simplify our cost of ownership. So by integrating very deeply and natively with AWS, we get a lot of integrations out of the box, which lowers our total cost of ownership. QuickSight has also been built for scale, which is exactly the type of solution that we needed to make sure that we could ship dashboards quickly and effectively to customers. Thirdly, QuickSight and the underlying data lake that we built has also been a single source of truth. So we can serve customers with one version of the truth and one version of the insights and not a scattered and fragmented one. But most importantly, with QuickSight, we've been able to essentially go from idea to customer smile. We've been able to develop and prototype dashboards internally, test them out with customers, share them with customers, and then launch them at scale, embed them at scale within our products so that all of our customers can start seeing the same insights that we are using internally to make customers successful. Taking a step back and looking at how this has turned out for us, I would say the impact has been pretty significant. So first of all, one of the things we've seen is that we've been able to deliver highly performant dashboards, and in some cases up to 10x faster. But most importantly, and the thing I'm most excited about, is we've now reduced the development of our dashboards from months to weeks, which means that we're now generating insights for customers exactly when they need it, providing them with much more tangible reports and targeted reports in less time. Overall, we've also seen almost a 3x increase in dashboard development activity in the company, and also seen a bit of a projection towards a decrease or an increase in ROI of about 3x, which means that in total, our data ownership is increased, and we have more time right now to invest in other areas of R&D. But the technology story is not the only story that's only part of the puzzle. I think an equally important part of our puzzle is the user experience and how we deliver insights to customers. And there's also quite an intriguing story behind that I want to highlight. Essentially, like one of the things we wanted to do is we didn't want to fall into the common trap of overwhelming a user with data. We wanted to make sure that data was contextual, actionable, and specifically when you're looking at these four things: focused, contextual, actionable, and personalizable. So I'm going to dive into each of these four components and give a bit more explanation about what they mean. So let's start with focused, right? When you start looking at data, and you want to pull some data to create a report, you usually have a motivation. You don't just go and analyze data for nothing. You want to actually make a decision, or you want to get some clarity. You want to evaluate the performance. And so essentially what you're doing is you're always starting with some kind of question in your mind that you want to have answered. And this is what we've done as well within our reporting framework, is we've made sure that all these reports and dashboards have a question that they start off with. This means that our reports are very opinionated, that they answer that question, but it also means that we can give real tangible insights. And more than tangible, we actually want to make them actionable, which means that we want to go beyond the data paralysis. We want to make sure you can make decisions based on that data. We want to provide you with best practices. We want to allow you to understand how you can perform better. And all this is based on a decade of experience that Showpad has been accumulating over its existence. And here again, you can see a bit of an example of what actionability looks like. You can clearly see here that as part of the dashboard, we're really integrating and thinking about the audience. We're trying to understand who are these dashboards designed for, and ask ourselves questions like, what information would make this dashboard successful, and what action can the user take based on the data that they're seeing. Thirdly, not only are our dashboards focused and actionable, they're also contextual and comparable. Because in order to get real highlights and to really understand how to act, you have to kind of understand the relativity of the actions that you want to take. So in our case, we're specifically including things like benchmarks and industry comparisons to make sure that the data that you have has context, it has meaning compared to relative data points in the industry, for example. So here in this case, in front of us, we're looking at, for example, how different data points are performing versus best, medium, and worst performers in your sales organization. But what about when you have a follow-up question? What about like when you want to go beyond a focused and actionable and contextual dashboard? And this is where personalization comes in. This is where flexibility comes in. We know that we can't answer all the questions. So we want to make sure that we have an answer for those follow-up questions, those specific questions that are tailored to specific needs that you're facing. And for that, one of the things that we've been introducing is something called Analytics IQ, which is our way of asking follow-up questions based on the dashboard that you're seeing. So you can, if you have a question, for example, here specifically, you can ask not just about the number of logins that you're seeing, but you can ask for a very specific date of what those happened or a very specific user.
All right, that's such a great way of thinking about these dashboards and making them focused and actionable. So I have a question with regards to the approach because it takes a lot of effort and thinking to deliver these. How do you think about creating these dashboards and instilling this practice at scale, Jeroen?
What was extremely important for us is to make sure that we had a templated approach for designing these dashboards. And you might have seen this in the way that I talked about our dashboards. They're very methodological. Like we basically have what you can see here on screen, some kind of a framework that allow us to, first of all, make sure that we ask a good leading question that brings focus. And we immediately try to answer those questions with something that we call big ass numbers, right? It's those high level health metrics that allow you to understand, should I do something here or is everything okay? And that's going to drive a lot of the action that you see below. Is it's going to drive you to, for example, start comparing data or understanding correlations as part of the inspect and adapt move. And ultimately, once you understand how your data compares to benchmarks or how it compares to peers in your industry, that's when you can start to take action. And that's also in our framework. Some of the, like you will see us drive specific actions using links, buttons, using a dynamic narrative as well. But we know data is obviously something that also drives a bit of interest beyond visualizations and actions and big ass numbers, right? Some people just want to get to the source. They want to understand how it's all built up. And so as part of that framework, we always provide a table with the source data that allows you to verify how that data is built up, but also allows you to export that data and continue your own analysis externally in, for example, your favorite spreadsheet to make sure that you can actually further drill down on some of the insights. And so with that, one of the things I want to do is show you what that looks like in real life. So here's an example of one of the many dashboards that we have in Showpad. And what's instantly recognizable is that template that I just talked about. We start with a question and we explain that question. So it's very clear what type of insights that we're trying to give you. And then here, you can see here those big ass numbers, those health metrics, those indicators that basically here tell you everything's green, everything's going in the right direction. And this is essentially these first two parts are for a lot of people enough to know that they're going in the right direction. But imagine if they're not going in the right direction. If they want to know a bit more, they want to drill down. That's when you get to this next level, right? Where we show you where we visualize some of the interactions that you've had on Showpad. And very importantly, we believe that data is super important, not just in absolute numbers, but especially in relative numbers. So we allow you to compare your data with industry benchmarks. And here, for example, I can clearly see that my data is a little bit below the industry benchmark, right? I can definitely go a bit more if I want to. And we try to not only show you the data, the visualization, but we try to translate that into a sentence, into language that you can then very quickly translate into an action. And for those people that are really interested in what makes up these numbers, like I mentioned before, we have the details. We have the raw numbers that make up some of these dashboards and some of these health metrics so that you can start to drill down and get a bit more information onto how these things work. So with that, I want to go back to Tony and let him explain what our customers are giving in terms of feedback.
Thanks very much for that, Jeroen. So let's take a little bit of a look and see what some of the feedback is we've got from some of the customers and how it's helping them, because I think ultimately that's what this is all about. I have to say, I've been building product now for 20 to 30 years now. I haven't had anybody come back to me and say, this report saved my life. So for me, that's one of the greatest compliments for somebody to say you've made their day, basically. And so I love the work the team have done to make this so manageable. And I set out for the team with the objective of saying, how can we get somebody to wake up in the morning, look at these insights, and be able to ask the questions that their leaders ask of them to make the best choices for their business. So people like Schneider, B. Braun, Netscope, and others are really getting value from the insights that we're now showing, rather than just walls of charts. And you and I have often joked about the fact that the last thing we need is one more wall of just charts. And so I'm grateful to see customers being able to use the insights. And it's as we say, it's not just the numbers. It's also the fact that we're actually giving guidance on what to do next, because we know that people are time poor in all the rest of the things they're doing. So I think the ability for having QuickSight be able to help us answer those questions quickly for customers has been incredibly satisfying for both us and to get the feedback from customers. So really pleased about that. And again, you can see here the quotes from customers. So if we look at some of the click down from that, the outcome that we are seeing from this move towards the use of QuickSight and our approach to answering customer questions has been just game-changing for Showpad. It's taken us from just another dashboarding capability of another product into something that sales leaders, sellers, sales enablement leaders, marketers can actually use to make better choices. So, for example, we're all about being able to find the right content at the right time, whatever kind of content that is in the sales cycle. The fact is that now the people who create that content have a better understanding of which content is creating the most engagement with buyers, and we can show them that in a much more easy and intuitive way. They can also see where to target investment more into which types of content, because we actually show them which content is actually linked to generating more deals. So the fact that we now bring in CRM information as well into the product, and we can do that at scale with QuickSight, which is something that's super hard to do at the kind of scale a SaaS company works at, I think is pretty impressive. If we look at the training side, the ability for the training organizations and a lot of our customers to actually tie what training and which sellers are using what training to drive the best deals and the best deal outcomes is really hard just from seeing like a wall of charts. We give them real insight using QuickSight to be able to actually tie that training material and taking training to better deal outcomes, which is incredibly valuable to our customers, again, who are trying to build really, really great content for training. Knowledge gaps can be identified quickly with sellers able to see what their peers are using for the best outcomes in terms of training material and content. It's easy to see that now with these QuickSight insights. And then last but not least, just the thing that we care about a lot between our customers and their buyers is to make sure that they can have improved conversations. So the ability to map outcomes back to best practice behaviors, so that we can now show in trend format, not just in absolute numbers, as Jeroen was saying, is really important for sellers to see what are the things that are having the best outcomes in deal cycles. What are their peers using to make the best impact? Using data to prove things, not just which seller is using their favorite deck this month. It's all about showing them the data behind that and why it's making a difference with real information and insight behind it. And last but not least, just the level of engagement, so that our sales teams at our customers can actually see what buyers are actually looking at at scale, when they're looking at it, why they're looking at it, and giving them, again, much just deeper insight into which content is really resonating to make the best conversations happen. So that whole piece about scale, the ability to give real deep insights and analytics, and create that templated view has been just a game changer for Showpad and our customers, which has been key.
Great customer stories and great customer quotes. I love the quote, "This dashboard saved my day." Like, it's a pretty solid quote. But thank you, everyone. In closing, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and special thanks to our presenters, Tony and Jeroen, to take us through their journey with QuickSight. But before we end the presentation, I'd like to ask our presenters, if there was one takeaway you would like our audience to take, what would that be?
I think in today's world, with a sea of data and every single company doing something with data, taking a step back and understanding what it's all about and really trying to empathize with the user on what they're going through day to day, I think has helped us to come up with a much more effective way of serving actionable insights to customers. And the good part about it is that we're not done, right? This is only the beginning for us. So we're really excited to continue on this trajectory to make data a lot more insightful and actionable for customers. And it's always with empathy. And I think this has been a core value in the development of this. And we want to continue to basically develop and lead with empathy.
It's great.
I just want to borrow. I'll borrow from our good friends at AWS and Amazon. I think it's working backwards from the customer. Always start with what's the problem your customer is actually having, and then what data can you bring to bear with insights and true insights, not just more walls of charts, but how can you help them make the next best actions in their days using that data based on the problems they're trying to solve, which is better. Because the other way of starting with the data you have and trying to turn that into a dashboard is just not going to work.
Great, great. As Jeroen said, we're just getting started. We appreciate the partnership and we look to support you in your continued success. Thank you again, Jeroen and Tony, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.